Usually gardening is thought of as a springtime activity, and the truth is you actually can garden at any time of the year, but with the economy, more people are turning to it as more of a lifestyle than they are of a hobby. I actually started my self-sufficiency journey back in 2017, started this channel in 2019, so I can definitely say that I've made a lot of mistakes, but I think that I have narrowed down these solutions that will save you a lot of frustration if you're just now starting your self-sufficiency journey and gardening. So this is going to help you create more of a healthy, happy harvest. But whatever the reason you're starting your garden, if I were to start over today, this would be my approach. So I'm your self-sufficiency coach, Alexandria Denise. So attack that like button and subscribe to the tribe for more self-sufficient content like this one. In this video, I'm mainly going to be referring to edible gardening, but this is going to apply to landscaping as well. But every plant actually has what's called a hardiness zone, or AKA your growing zone. So a rattlesnake is no more comfortable in the Arctic than a polar bear is in Texas. And what I mean is everything on this planet has its preferred climate in which it is better suited for or adapted for. And plants are no different. Every region has an average low winter temperature. So with these temperatures, they range anywhere between 70 or to below zero. And it lets gardeners know basically like the plant's tolerance to the cold. Here in the US, it's from 1 to 13. This might be different for you depending on where you are in the world, so you just have to check with your local weather authority or university or environmental agency just to see how yours is categorized. But here in the US, the USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, teamed with weather authorities as well as universities to break our continent down into sections. So every section we have 13 zones, and within those zones are subzones, which is labeled either A, which is the coldest of that region, or B, which is the warmer of that region. So where I am here in Georgia, zone 8A, it's a little colder than zone 8B, which starts a little before Macon. But here in Atlanta, we're more of a subtropic, and our low average is about 30 degrees. So, but it does get colder. We do have colder days. It's just that our average is 30. So that way we can choose varieties that are based off of how low our temperatures go. So like I said, if you are watching anywhere else in the world, I'm not sure exactly how they break that down, but definitely it'll help you to start with your local weather authority, universities, or even if your country have some type of environmental agency that keeps track of this. And if you are watching this somewhere else in the world, leave a comment below and let me know where you are. I'd love to know. It's great to know that I'm actually branching out. So now it's not all about survival. Some plants, they need cold in order to either germinate for the next season or produce the harvest. So for example, blueberries, they have like a chill hour. Well, certain blueberries have to have a certain amount of chill hours in order to produce fruit for the following spring. Or if you're talking about something like garlic, it takes about 9 months for it to grow. So with that being said, it also has to have a period of cold between like 4 to 6 weeks at temperatures anywhere below 40 before it can go through a process called vernalization. This is so that the bulb can create multiple cloves, and therefore now you have garlic. So if not, sometimes you'll either have a short harvest or no harvest at all, or you'll have kind of like these deformed vegetables. So sometimes cold is good, but also it could kill a lot of plants. So to save yourself the frustration, knowing your hardiness zone will definitely help you choose not just the plants, but also the variety of that plant, which I'm going to get into in just a second. But the cold hardiness can work in reverse too. A lot of times when you're trying to grow a variety that's more of a cold loving plant, such as lettuce, you might want to see which varieties do better in the heat, meaning they're heat tolerant. So for example, when I was trying to grow lettuce in the summer, well, I would have to choose a variety of lettuce that does better in the heat than say some of the cooler varieties that I like to grow. So black-seeded Simpson is more heat tolerant than say a different variety. I can't name off the top of my head right now, but that's how it would go. Or even spinach. When it comes to spinach as well, it'll both go to seed really quickly. So a variety that does very well there would be Matador versus something like Bloomsdale. So it does help to know how cold and how hot your climate in which you are growing gets. So what I would do, I would actually Google what variety of blank grows best for my zone blank. And then that's how you would easily find whatever it is that you're trying, whether it's a watermelon, whether it's cucumber, whether it's this. They basically make varieties for just about all of them. Like some are better suited for containers, but we'll get into that a little later. So basically your low temperatures, your lowest average winter temperatures, and your highest summer temperatures are something you definitely want to keep an eye on when you're looking for your different varieties. Nurseries usually do well with this as well. So if you're buying a plant from, say, like any store, doesn't matter, they usually have the variety that's suited for the climate that you're buying in. But this is more so if you see something on the internet and you're like, ooh, I want to grow that. Well, you now keep in mind, like, it may not be so much as that versus where you're actually growing it. So here you're thinking if it doesn't do well, you just don't have a green thumb. But no, you were just growing it in the wrong conditions or the wrong climate. Which brings me actually to my next point. I want you to grow foods that you actually like to eat and learn a little something about them. So instead of giving you a list of foods that are easy to grow, I more so recommend people grow things that they would be more enthused about eating. That way you're determined a little more to stick with it versus something that you really don't care about. So I can't say, oh, just start with tomatoes. Well, what if you're allergic to tomatoes? Even if tomatoes are a staple food, lettuce is as well. I mean, they're pretty versatile, go on just about everything. You may not want to do that. But all I can say is that they make a variety for just about every plant that you like. So you might want to start there, make a list, and then do a little research based upon what it is you like to eat. So with that being said, let's just say that you like watermelon, okay? Well, this watermelon is not like this watermelon, meaning Jubilee and Sugar Baby. So one requires 6+ hours of sun, the other maybe a little less, and one can grow better in the ground versus the other does well in containers. So you just have to think about which variety will better suit you. It's still a watermelon, no doubt, but they both have different growing conditions. And when listing your foods and learning about them, I want you to also answer these simple but important questions. What type of soil it thrives in best? Is it a warm or cold weather plant? What other plants can be companioned with them? How much sunlight and water is required? And how much space is required? Containers or in ground? These questions can save you a lot of frustration, and I'm going to break them down starting with number 1. What type of soil it thrives in best? Okay, so let's get something straight. Dirt and soil are not the same. Dirt is basically lifeless matter. Soil is a whole ecosystem, a microbiome that is made up of microorganisms and other creatures that support one another to make the environment for the plant healthy. So you always want to make sure that whatever it is that you're planting, you're planting it in the soil type that is most suited for that plant. So for example, olive trees. Well, olives, they more so originated in the Mediterranean area. Well, what type of soil is around there? A lot of sandy soil. A lot of soil that either holds moisture but is well draining. So if that's the type of soil that you're going to plant it in, all the dirt or all the soil types are not the same. Then just the same as blueberries. You can't just stick it in a pot and hope that it'll grow. Now you have to ask, what's the pH level of that soil? So if that pH is not up par with what blueberry standards are, which is usually anywhere between, well, I have gone as far as like 4.7 all the way to like 6.3 or so, then that's suitable for the blueberries. It's just the biology of the plant. If the soil's pH is not of standard, then that plant cannot access nutrients and therefore grow. So it might be nutrients in the soil, but because the pH level is not correct, the plant isn't going to grow. And that's where doing a lot of research on what you are trying to grow, it goes a long way. So it's not enough, it's just knowing your hardiness zone, but also the soil type in which that plant thrives. Also, a lot of plants don't like wet roots, so they can get prone to a lot of disease and rot if the soil is not well draining. I actually have a video on loam soil, so I will link that video somewhere after this one. Moving on to my next point, is it a warm or cold weather plant? So never mind the thing right now about hardiness zone, that doesn't tell the entire tale. Hardiness mainly goes for perennials, which come back year after year, and then you have your annuals, which you have to plant every year. And so if you're talking about something like peppers or zucchini, well, those are warm loving plants. They like it hot. So if you're trying to start a garden with either of those two plants in, say, late fall, then on into the fall, they're not going to survive the winter because they require growing conditions that are 60 and above. Versus if you want to start something like Brussels sprouts, you absolutely can start it in the late fall because those are cold loving plants and it'll grow on up until early spring. I think Brussels sprouts take anywhere from 100 something days to grow, so therefore they would be better suited to plant in the fall. However, at some nurseries, I kind of see it as a disservice that they would have Brussels sprouts like in the early spring. True enough, but at the same, when they start rolling out inventory, I just noticed Brussels sprouts and I'm just like, well, you know, they take a long time to mature. Some might be shorter than others, but still they'll be rolling into the early summer, which in your climate, it probably doesn't get too hot in the early summer, but here where I am, it gets like hot really quickly. And sometimes, I'll bring up a little later, you do have to pay attention to your first and last frost dates. But I mean, your Brussels sprouts will probably either bolt and go to seed if it starts getting above those temperatures and consistently above those temperatures. So sometimes I don't understand why they do that. I guess, like I said, culturally, we think of gardening as a springtime activity. So people are just like, roll in whatever you can give me. So, but just keep in mind if it is a cold or warm loving plant. And there are definitely some things that you can do to accommodate that plant, such as greenhouses or UV lights or something other like that, grow lights. And some people are getting into hydroponics. But I made a video on seed packets that further explain also harvest dates. So I'll also link that one somewhere in this video, or you can just scavenge around on my channel to find it. Question number 3. What other plants can be companioned with the plant you're trying to grow, which means coupled? So out in nature, things aren't just growing randomly, though it looks like that to the untrained eye, but some plants actually prefer to grow next to one another. So for example, when I morel mushroom hunt, in my region, they usually can be found around, I guess I can give it away, tulip poplar trees. Though in another region, they may be better suited around other trees. But this is because these two plants actually have similar growing conditions. So sometimes you would get things just growing in random spots, but that's because either the soil condition is right, or it is another plant out there that is giving that plant what it needs. So it's a relationship. It's not just, oh, I'm going to grow here just because of no apparent reason. Sometimes it may be like that, but a lot of times plants like to support one another, you know? So every plant have its companion. Now, it's not like the plant is just uprooting itself and going where it desires to go. A lot of times in nature, especially if you have those type of plants that are wind pollinators, the seeds will blow wherever it goes. It's almost like let the chips fall where it may. It either grow in the right soil conditions with the right coupled plants, or it won't. So that's the thing there in nature. Now in your garden, you actually get to decide what couples with what. So if you've heard of the Three Sisters Companion, this is where the corn, beans, and squash is a Native American technique of where they would plant these three things together, known as Three Sisters. And it's actually a beautiful story around it, but I'll spare that for a later moment. But the idea of it is that the beans fix nitrogen into the soil, and corn is a nitrogen-loving plant, and therefore those two have a symbiotic relationship with one another. The beans put nitrogen into the soil. Also, the corn provides the trellis for the beans to climb up if it's poling. And when it comes to the squash variety, which usually is a winter squash or a hard-shelled squash, but summer squash can work just as well, it binds out so that it can create more like a pest control, so that whatever rodents or something have a hard time getting to the corn. So this is an example of, and it's actually the pinnacle of companion planting that many gardeners do today. Also, you can think of something like basil and tomatoes, and you can also plant beans with tomatoes, because beans just about couple with almost everything, but they are very great nitrogen fixers, and if you have a plant that is very heavy on that, it benefits it. So the same thing with the corn, the beans will crawl up the tomatoes while it's fixing nitrogen into the soil. You pair it with basil. Basil deters what's called the tomato hornworm, and it's also been reported that basil helps tomatoes taste better. So that's another great example. But you can maximize your space in knowing like what couples better with what, and that's just how you get the most out of your harvest. But I would still suggest, if you're very new to this, to start with something simple that you can handle, but still feel free to go all out if you're just like, I'm gonna do it. Now, my last two questions actually bridge into my next point, which is number 4, how much sunlight and water is required? So there are some things that go into this. Space is not just how much room you have, but it's also limited to the amount of sunlight that space actually receives. So if it depends on, like, if you're in a house with a yard, or if you're in an apartment with a window, are you going to do it grow lights or hydroponics or something like that? So along with your space or your sunlight requirements, you may have a lot of space to say, let's go back to the Jubilee watermelon. You have the space required to grow it, for it to branch out and do its thing. But then maybe that space is actually under a tree that, say, gets shaded early to late afternoon when the sunlight is the greatest. Well, that probably wouldn't be a great place to put your watermelon, because you blocked out the important parts of the sunlight. So you'd have to choose another spot. Also, when it comes to apartment living, I myself started in an apartment, a townhouse to be exact, before I was ordered to downsize. But out there on the patio, I get good sunlight in the early mornings, and then early afternoon it starts to get shaded in that area. So really right now, before I had to downsize, I was growing the Three Sisters, tomatoes, blueberries. I have a whole video on small space that I will link also. I'm just throwing out all the videos, so y'all, come on now. You gotta look at one of them, all right? So, but I do have a small space video out there on my channel for you to check out, so you can see somewhat of what my setup looked like. But even in a smaller situation, you can grow something. You just have to make sure that, yes, you have an adequate amount of sunlight, and if you don't, what is that setup going to look like? So are you going to have grow lights? Are you going to do it under hydroponics? I keep saying phonics, like this is like Hooked on Phonics or something. I'm so 90s kid. But it's hydroponics, okay? You know, you just gotta think about how you're going to supply those two necessary things. But when it comes to water, you also have to think about how big your garden is. Depending on the size of your garden, it takes a lot of water or a little water. It really just depends on the watering needs for the plant and how large and how much you actually have. So I suggest if you want to go all out, that's fine, but you really need to have a plan for watering it, because water is not only just expensive as far as the service to get it to you, but it's also time consuming when you have to go out there and water deep and make sure that, you know, everything gets an equal amount of water to last however long it needs it. And my last point is also the actual physical space. A lot of people don't know that vertical gardening is a thing. They think they need a lot of space, but you really don't. Are you going to plant in ground or in containers? Let's just say your plant is avocados, but let's just say I live in zone 3. It gets pretty cold up there. And obviously we know that avocados are more of tropical plants. So you're gonna have to have a game plan. Maybe you're gonna do it indoors in a greenhouse. You're gonna keep that heated. You have to choose varieties that grow well in a pot. Because obviously if you were to grow it outside in the ground and you're in zone 3, it gets pretty cold out there and your plant won't survive. Maybe there's somebody out there who has one that defied the odds. Maybe there is a variety, okay, that I do not know about that does well in that region. But on average, in general, avocados more so like it warm. But leave a comment if so. I'd love to know. But they also make dwarf varieties of these plants, so those that can do well in containers. And I personally like container gardening because right now I'm not in my forever home and I'm constantly all over the place. So I'd like to be able to have the luxury of picking up and uprooting my plants along with me to move somewhere else. So portable gardening is really convenient for me, and it's something that you may want to look into. And it's a little easier if something goes wrong with the soil, you can change out the soil. I can go on and on and on about all of this, but the important thing is, like, I have so many other videos on my channel that you guys can hunt down. Irrigation, I have loam soil video, small space video, you name it. So just track it down on the mother channel, True Nature here. But also, that is another thing I'd like to ask of you guys. If you could please do me a huge favor. If you have survived the video this long, then do me a favor and leave it a green thumbs up so it can branch out and reach more people. YouTube has become a very hostile environment because AI videos are running feral on the platform and causing original creators like myself to go extinct. And it's pretty hard to adapt to these circumstances in this new environment. We're constantly having to do something new to keep up with the algorithm. But liking the video or doing whatever other feature that YouTube has that's new will definitely increase our chances of survival. So be like nature. Everything is an ecosystem. It pours back into each other. Don't just take. Pour back into the pot that you take from and benefit the others that are around you. Seriously, I greatly appreciate it. My next point is the budget. All right, this one is a big one and probably is very relevant, and the first thing that a lot of people think about when they're thinking about doing anything new. It doesn't matter, starting a business or blah blah blah. A lot of people ask, well, how much is this going to cost? And I'm going to tell you that it doesn't take thousands of dollars to get you to where you want to go. It takes hard work, resourcefulness, creativity, you name it, skills. I myself didn't start with a whole lot. In fact, I was going to the hardware store and finding scrap wood before they started charging people for it, like 70%. Getting scrap wood to start raised garden beds and some more things. Out of hunting, fishing, and gardening, self-sufficient lifestyle is so vast, but it's highly customizable, and that's the beauty of it. There's really no one way how you have to do this. So I just recommend that you start with something that you can handle, and then it just snowballs from there. So it takes nothing to really just start container gardening using old beverage bottles. Cut them in half, turn them upside down. Now you have, put some soil in it, a little bit of water at the bottom, and boom, you have something there. Or start a compost on your kitchen counter. You have a little jar or something to put your kitchen scraps in. There are so many different ways you can get started in self-sufficiency, not just jumping off the bat and buying a whole lot of things. You gotta have one thing that leads and feed into another, just like in nature. You know, everything is just recycled and feeds back into one another. But if you have the cash on hand, great. Don't let me stop you. But if you want to go for the more resourceful route, like myself, then I highly recommend that you start now. Meaning, like, you know, because it takes time to be resourceful. You're going to be looking for a lot of these different things from different places. I myself use Facebook Marketplace. I go to junkyards. I find stuff on the roadside sometimes. Construction sites can even give you dirt. Sometimes when they're done leveling things out, they may have some dirt left over. Just be like, hey, can I have some of that? Pretty sure if it's not a whole truckload, but actually that's a thing as well. If you were to find that on Facebook Marketplace, they deliver dirt by the truckloads and you just have to turn it into soil with living organic matter. I can show you how to do that in some of my other videos as well. But composting facilities. So there are a lot of different avenues you can take that helps you get started in gardening or your self-sufficient journey. If you're interested in hunting and fishing, I'll do different videos on that. But as far as gardening, Facebook Marketplace, like I said, is going to be your friend. Junkyards, compost facilities, and finding things on the roadside, you name it. So there are just so many ways to make this work. And a lot of times I don't spend a lot of money on soil. I don't spend a lot of money on containers. If I do, if I have, it was in the beginning before I knew better. But now that I have perfected my system and how I do things, I'm here to share that information with you guys. So also, when it comes to land, you actually don't need to own land to get started. I myself borrow land. I don't own the place that I garden. I met this lady through a hunting buddy of mine, actually long before the whole fiasco with my garden happened. That she had everything that you would see in the future videos. She had that, and we were just basically over there hunting, and that was a way for me to continue to hunt over there, is to also offer her help with her garden. She's not elderly, but she's old enough, but she also have a few problems that won't allow her to get out into the garden as much as she'd like. So that's where I come in. So if you're a younger adult, this is your opportunity. If you want to have a garden and you know, like an elderly couple or somebody like that that also is interested in that, this is your opportunity to just make that relationship happen and take it from there. So if you're serious about the self-sufficient lifestyle, I mean, you are probably going to have to do more of the labor if they're unable to. So that's kind of the trade-off. That's how I work as well. Like, I have a place to garden. I do more of the labor. I mean, she pitches in where she can, but we split the harvest. And that's how I make it happen. She's in an established home. She has a large yard. She already has the interest of gardening. And so that's how you can basically grow from there. So yeah. And there are other ways that I find land too. If I'm not going to be dragged by the hunting community for sharing that, I may end up sharing that in the other video. I'm not sure yet, but there are other ways that I find at least hunting land that I could share when you borrow land. But as far as when it comes to gardening, if you want a large garden, think that you can handle it, even if you're just starting out. I don't know. Everybody have their different tolerance level. Then that can be a route that you take. And honestly, it's a really good route because you're not only benefiting yourself, but you're benefiting somebody else who maybe don't have the physical strength or labor to do what it is that's needed, you know? So when you do the labor, they provide the land, you split the harvest, everybody win. And if more people can do that throughout the neighborhood, I mean, you got your own little self-sufficient system and community going on. That's what community gardens are also there for. I know some of them may charge a fee for a plot or whatever, but I mean, that's something you can look at. The only wrong time to start a garden is far into the future. The time is honestly now. You spend a lot more time thinking about doing something than actually doing it. And once you are doing it, it's like, it's a breeze. So start now and let your future self thank you. With that being said, I'll see you in the other videos, guys. Thanks, and until then, stay wild.